Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Ad Astra Kansas Money Talks podcast. I'm Joe Blubaugh, and I am joined, as always, by Bob Schwartz and Mark Johnson. And they are the brain trust behind Bob Schwartz Financial, with offices in Victoria, Kansas, as well as Silver Lake, Kansas. And you can find them on the web at bobschwartzfinancial.com. Before we introduce our special guest, I just want to remind you, if you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, subscribing, all the things, so that way you'll know when we put out a new episode. And without further ado, let's welcome our special guest today. So we're going to do an episode that talks about early money and savings, and sometimes issues that go along with being young and having some money. And we are joined by Carter Robert. And Carter is actually the intern here for the summer. Yep. And Carter, go ahead and take a few minutes to introduce yourself. Maybe tell us where you go to school, all the things.
Yeah, I go to K-State. I'll be a junior this year, studying finance, also getting a sales certificate along with that. Excited to be here this summer and going back to school here soon. So maybe tell us a little bit about why you wanted to intern. Now, you're from Silver Lake, let's say that. So yep. We're here at the Silver Lake office. This is your hometown. Yep. You've probably known Bob for a long time. Yeah, I know you've known Mark for a long time. Yep. He was probably one of your teachers there for a while. Oh, yeah. But maybe tell us a little bit why you wanted to intern here with Bob and Mark this summer. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, you can't beat the fact that it's conveniently located here versus going to Kansas City for an internship. But also, I mean, it's well known that, these guys know what they're doing, so it's always good to be able to be around somebody who really knows what they're doing, because there's so many things that you can learn from them. And also just gives me a chance to just see, what someone in this position is doing every day. So,
well, and that'll lead me to my next question, and then we'll start the episode, I promise. But maybe give us a quick synopsis of kind of maybe the highlight of the things that maybe you've learned, and how that might help you going forward.
Yeah, definitely. There's been several things that I've learned that I kind of wish I would have knew before I started schooling, because there's been some things that kind of clicked in my mind being here that would have definitely helped me in some of my classes. But, for example, one of the main things I've learned is a better way of looking at stocks to invest in, and really a better way of going about doing that.
Very good. All right. Well, with that, we'll get started on the episode. We're going to talk a little bit about money in your early 20s, which is where Carter is at in his life right now. And, Mark, there are a lot of mistakes you can make in your 20s, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carter, maybe you could tell us the first money mistake that you remember making.
Oh, geez. I don't even know. I'm sure I've made some bad ones.
Well, here, let me see if I can make this a little bit easier.
We can all give ours.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Yeah,
okay. I'll lead us off. So probably the biggest mistake that I made, I was in my 20s, and it's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. Yeah. I got such a late start on investing in my retirement that was the biggest mistake that I made with money in my 20s, was not taking advantage of my 20s. I waited till I was in my 30s before I started investing, and I can only imagine where my portfolio would be if I had started putting some of that money away in my 20s instead of blowing it on the dumb stuff that I blew it on.
Wasn't dumb at the time, though.
Oh, no. And regardless of what my parents told me, I was making the right decision.
Yeah. That too.
Yes. Bob, can you think back to your 20s?
Oh, no. Barely. We could do 6 episodes on the mistakes I made in my 20s financially, but the one that popped in my mind when we were talking before the show started was a Sears credit card. When I was in college, I worked at Sears, and they had a deal: if you work there, you get a credit card. So I got a credit card, and then the next thing I know, I'm married and I'm having babies, and I honestly thought in my 20s and early 30s that I would always pay Sears and Roebuck $30 a month for the rest of my life. because baby bed. I mean, I bought so much stupid stuff from them. Baseball glove because I was playing slow pitch and I needed a new glove. That kind of stuff. But debt was the creation of debt in my life was the biggest mistake I made.
Very good.
Mine wasn't that long ago, so but, not as long ago. But I don't know. The thing I think of like in my early 20s was thinking that I needed a new vehicle. I started a job, so I'm like, I need a better vehicle, and I just remember it wasn't like I got like the vehicle I bought was great. It was wonderful, all that good stuff. But I got like railroaded by that salesman. Like he
You can afford this.
Yeah, or more like I had no way of just being like, no, I'll walk away, or no sales tactics at all. I was young in my 20s. I'm a millennial. That's just like, okay, yeah, let's just do it. I just want it done with. And I feel like that was one of the hardest. That was one of the best lessons for me when my wife like got in the car with me and she looked at me and she goes, "Why did you just take that? Like, go like counter argue, like try to get a better deal, And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like money back then, I just couldn't. I felt like I didn't have any power in those situations, which in reality, you have all the power in situations like that. And I feel like that was a huge, and now I talk about how cars are pretty much one of the biggest wealth killers. And that wasn't for me at the time because I could afford it because I had saved that money and was able to, I did it the right way at the time. But still, if I would do it differently, I think I could have got a way better deal. I think I could have probably bought a car that was least expensive, not even taking a loan out, those type of things.
Yeah. Bring any ideas to you on biggest money mistake you've made, or maybe you just haven't made any yet?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm almost 21, so I'm really just getting started in my 20s here. So I'm
just getting started making mistakes.
I'm sure I'm just getting to the edge of making mistakes. But yeah, I would say kind of similar to what you said. Maybe just being like scared or hesitant to start investing sooner.
Well, here's the important thing about mistakes, whether it's money or anything, is a mistake compounds if you don't learn from it. And learn from Mark's story, learn from my story, learn from Bob's story. Don't make the same mistakes. There you go. Yep.
So and don't, the other thing, I had brothers older than me, so I'm thinking in my 20s, one of the huge mistakes I made was buying new cars. Because they were 10 years, 15 years older than me, and so they were much better established. But then also they'd go, well, you got to get rid of a car with 50,000 miles on it. That car's worthless at 50,000 miles. Yeah. And I was 26. I was in this industry. I was driving all over, and I got to get me a new car. Stupid, And so don't listen to Grandpa or your older brothers, because people my age all think cars are done at 50,000 miles, as my pickup just went over 250,000.
Right. It is funny how that has changed. I remember even me, who's a generation younger than you, it had kind of switched. 100,000 was the point. And, now today you walk into a car dealership and, I don't buy new cars. That's one of the things from a money standpoint I just don't do. Let somebody else take that big depreciation. But, now when I go into a dealership and it's got 75,000 miles on it, I'm thinking, wow, that's almost new. It is.
100,000's nothing nowadays. I'm serious. When I was 15 years old, a car with 50,000 miles on it was wore out. But I remember in the 70s reading about how these computers were going to get where failure, just didn't occur. And think about driving cars today. You just they don't break down.
Not as much.
I guess that's not a financial mistake.
I just read an article about how the vehicle industry is pretty much destroying personal finance, or for budgets for people in their 20s.
They're so expensive.
And pretty much that we already talked about it's the biggest wealth killer in the United States. That's pretty much everyone. I feel like most people agree with that. But just seeing the numbers behind how much people are taking out in loans with these dealerships and how much
7 years
age and the age group of 20 to 30 year olds that are taking these massive amount of yeah, I'm gonna buy the $80,000 pickup and take a 8-year loan.
Well, welcome back to the Car Talk podcast.
Well, that's so important about, because I know Carter's not this way. I know his family, and they're not that way. But we have young people in their 20s come in here, and they'll have $60,000 of student debt, and $40,000 car loan, and they want to go buy a house. And how can we help them collect? Get the money to do it.
Right.
And the way you do that is get rid of your debt.
Yeah. And it's so funny because if you've listened to this podcast before, we've kind of mentioned it. My background is military. And my last position in the military before I retired was I was a commander. And I had a responsibility, and I sat down with every one of my new members that had joined our unit. And we talked about, the typical stuff you would talk about. But I always took a few moments to talk about money, because when you're young and in the military, money can trip you up and it can become a big issue. You can lose your security clearance if you have problems with money, because there's a thought that you could be co-opted. So long story short, most of those people that I talked to were 19, 20 years old. They just got done with basic training. And I said, I bet you have more money today than you've ever had in your life.
Yeah.
And I think to a person that was the case. They just got back from all this training. They couldn't really spend money while they were there. But the first thing I'd say is, don't buy that truck. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Because I saw so many of these kids get a little bit of money, and then they all of a sudden bought a $50,000, $60,000 truck, and they were just behind the 8 ball from day one. And plus then we'd sit and talk about the power of compound interest and Roth IRA, all the things. But I always said, one of these days, 40 years from now, you're going to thank Lieutenant Colonel Blueboff for that. So anyway, it is. It's a trap that people can fall into. Especially when you see your friends driving around that really nice vehicle. I did it when I was 16 years old. I bought a brand new truck, brand new, 3 miles on it. And,
Really?
I did.
Yeah.
And, wasn't my biggest money mistake, but it was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
It was up there. So anyway, let's talk about some common struggles that people in their 20s face. And Carter, I'll ask you this question. Do you budget? And it's probably not a conversation a lot of people have when they're your age, but do you think a lot of your friends or a lot of people in your age group budget on a monthly basis?
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky question for me, because I don't always necessarily have a steady income, because I'm going to school and that's really my job. But so that makes it a little more tricky to budget. But yeah, I do budget some, and I feel like, I don't know. I feel like nowadays it's getting more popular for people to start a budget, because so many people are realizing how beneficial that can be. But I don't know. I don't really feel like a whole lot of my friends really take advantage of a budget.
So for those in your limited experience, do you think that most people now use an app, a budgeting app, Excel, pen and paper and a ledger? What do you think is the most common way people budget?
Yeah, I would say an app and probably Excel too.
Yeah.
What are the apps? Money.
Well, Dave Ramsey's got a good one.
Yeah.
Every dollar. It is really powerful.
Mint Mobile.
Mint.
Yeah. I used that one for a while. I just use a good old-fashioned spreadsheet is what I do. And I will, once again, I'll just give my personal experience here. I went through my 20s and, like I said, into my early 30s even, where we just lived paycheck to paycheck and we weren't investing, and one day it just kind of the realization came, enough's enough. And what turned the corner for me personally is we took a month and saved every receipt, so we knew where every dollar was going, pinpointed where our problem was, and then from that point on we started budgeting. And the second we started budgeting, my life changed. I'm not exaggerating. My life changed, and it turned it completely around on a dime. It is, and that is one thing that Dave Ramsey says that I do agree with him on, is that you should give every dollar coming into your life a job, and before it gets to you. I mean, you should know where that dollar is going when you get it, and stick to that budget.
Yeah, the most common way for people, if someone's going to give you dieting advice, it's to track every calorie in your diet. You don't know how much you don't know how much you're eating until you actually track it down. It's the same thing with your budget. I think so many people are unaware of, oh wow, I do have that subscription, or I do have this. I am paying a little bit more than I thought for my eating out for the month than I usually do. And until you see that on paper and you see that, oh, I'm actually maybe in the net negative, that's pretty hard. Just like if you get on MyFitnessPal and you track and you're like, I eat clean every day, but it's also you're still eating 3,500 calories a day. Just because, seeing that is so psychologically beneficial for the money-making process.
We'll have, and this isn't young people, but Mark's seen it. Mark's been doing this long enough that he's already seen it. When you sit down with couples getting ready to retire and you say, how much do you spend a month? And there's the couples that go, we spend $7,000 a month or $7,200 a month. And they say it definitively, and as an advisor, I sit and go, they're on top of their game. And then some people go, oh, yeah, I don't know. We can get by on $3,000 a month. Yeah. And you sit as an advisor and go, okay. But you go, no, you're not. And you're not paying any attention, and you're spending. And there's kind of two periods. In your 20s, you're not budgeting and you're spending and you're having a good time and you're doing stupid stuff with your money. If you can keep from doing stupid stuff and just end up on the positive side of getting out of college, and a doctor up Monaga, Kansas told us this about his kids. Each of them got out of college with no debt, and he gave them a car and said, go get them. And when you think about that, what a great gift is if all of us could have our children graduate from college with a car,
no debt,
and no debt. You've done an excellent job, and I would encourage. Joe's right in the middle of that now, and I know his situation is very positive in that direction, and I know that you guys will do the same. But if we could, then a young person understands what benefit their education was to them.
Well, let's talk about it. It's a perfect segue. It's like you looked ahead to see what we were going to talk about next, because student loan debt is a huge, yeah, it really is. Student loan debt is a huge part of somebody your age that is going to college, and it can be college is a blessing, and you can learn so much, and it can launch you, but it can also weigh you down if you have a bunch of student loans. So I'm not asking you specifically, because we don't need to get into your personal situation, but as a general rule, would you say that the majority of your peers that you've talked to are doing student loans, or do you kind of have a sense about that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because, people don't really just want to confess that they have student loans, but I feel like generally everybody is trying to avoid them, obviously, but I mean, I feel like most of my friends around me know that they need to do everything they can to put their money towards staying out of student debt. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I once again, having been in the military, there was a program where they did student loan repayment. So I took out student loans kind of out of a question, both necessity and the fact that I was signed up for a program that the government would pay them back. Now, I ended up taking out a lot more loans than what they paid back. But, it was something that was just constantly there. And I will never forget the day that I called. I just got back from a 6-month deployment in Africa. I had a little extra money in my pocket. And it was New Year's Day of New Year's Eve of 2010. I picked up the phone. I called my loan, whoever had my loans for my student loans, and paid off the last big chunk of it, and I was done. And it once again, it was one of those moments that helped change my financial life, because that huge payment that was going to student loans was gone, and it just freed it up for other things. So it is something that sometimes a necessity, but you have to be careful with student loans.
Yeah. What really stinks is for people that are, doing those advanced degrees where it's almost like you have to take student loans to pay for, maybe medical school, or, for a lot of people that's just a reality. And
But one quick point there, if somebody happens to be watching, the kids going to young adults going to medical school or law school, terribly expensive. But when they get out, their income potential.
Yep.
I would much rather see somebody coming out of medical school owing $300,000 than somebody coming out that's going to be an educator and owing $30,000.
Yep.
Because that educator, if they don't have a payback system in their state, they're going to get. I mean, it's going to hurt, because they're going to make what, $45,000 a year. I don't know what a first year teacher makes.
Around that, 40, 45.
Yeah. Where a physician's going to make
a lot more.
Yeah.
I think about that too. And when, you have to take those loans out, but that's when you start looking at ways to find those loan forgiveness programs, go work in a hospital out in rural Kansas or wherever in Alaska. Or I know some friends that are seriously there. They both are doctors. They flew up and are both working in Alaska, and they make a lot of money, and they're getting their loans forgiven while they're up there.
Yeah, so they're making a boatload of money.
And getting
You throw in that loan forgiveness. That's unreal. So there's good debt. I always use it. My niece got a doctorate and is a college professor, and did well, from her student debt. But sometimes I see young people, they'll take out the loans, and a year later they're not in school, and they're saddled with a $10,000 to $11,000 or more debt.
We've talked about this before, but Carter and I are actually talking about this yesterday. But I feel like the biggest thing is, if you're someone that knows that I'm gonna have to pay for my own college, there's probably no reason for you to go roll up to K-State, KU, or Wichita State, wherever, for those first 2 years.
You can go for free.
Yeah, go to community college. Yeah, get it paid for. Pay is a lot less, and do your gen eds and just get them done there. And then once you figure out what your professional degree is going to be, figure out, hey, maybe I do go to the traditional 4-year and finish off those 2 years, and that can help a lot too.
Well, and I think we'd be remiss if we don't mention that if you are in your 20s and you've got the student loan debt, as you start working on your family, think about your kids, and they're going to be in their 20s, and start those 529 plans early. They're a great savings mechanism, and it can really kind of take the pressure off your family later in life as well.
Give you so many more options.
Yeah, absolutely.
Story I've told many times. There was a young man from Silver Lake that went to Coffeyville Junior College to play football, and got recruited by Stanford. Went to Stanford, graduated from Stanford. Do you think anybody hiring him coming out of Stanford asked him where he went his first 2 years of college?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. I had a son, went to Fort Scott JUCO for 2 years. Last 2 years at Kansas State, graduated from K-State. Did anybody ask him where he went his first 2 years of school? No.
Yeah.
They ask you if you got that degree. And I think the key thing is, if you're coming from a household that doesn't have the breadth of sending you to a state school or a private school, there is no shame in going to a junior college whatsoever. And having those first 2 years basically be free.
Well, I would make the argument too that at a JUCO, at one of those gen ed classes, you might have 15 people in your class.
Yep.
If you go to K-State, you might have 600 people in your class. And I'm not saying you can't learn in a class of 600. Of course you can. But having that one-on-one, I would argue that you could probably learn just as much at the JUCO because you have much more opportunity to interact with that instructor.
And I've had young people say, well, or parents say, well, they'll miss out on that experience that I had of getting to meet people in college, etc. Well, my son that didn't go to start out day one at a school, he's got friends from junior college and he's got friends from Kansas State that are still lifelong friends. So there is that college experience, but wow. Well, the other thing is you can graduate from high school with so many hours nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting close to the end of the episode here, but Carter, I have a question for you, and we're going to kind of, and probably Mark as well, because of your education background. One of the things that's happened over the last couple of years is that Kansas has set in their curriculum that students now need at least a small portion of financial literacy. Now, they don't define that very well, if I remember correct, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. So each school district kind of defines what financial literacy means to them, but Carter, what is something that maybe you've learned since you left high school that you wish you would have been taught in high school that would have helped you as you've navigated these first couple of years of college?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean, a lot, but I am in a finance major, so I'm kind of, it's kind of all getting crammed down my throat, so it all kind of blends together. But a lot of things like through my economics classes were pretty beneficial. But I mean, every class, they still tell you, you got to start saving now. Like whenever if there's ever like a guest speaker come in and people ask, what's something you would tell to somebody in my position? They always say, start yesterday. I have heard start yesterday so many times that I hate hearing it. But I mean,
but they're right.
They're right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one. So what is maybe a financial goal that through this process, both interning here this summer, but also through your classes, what's one financial goal that you've kind of set for yourself over the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, I mean, my goal always has been make it through college without any debt, and I'm on track for that, thankfully. So
good for you.
Yeah, that's been my main goal pretty much. But then, I mean, as soon as I really can, start investing, start coming to somebody like Bob and Mark here who can help you get everything straight like you really need it to.
Well, let me set your mind at ease. In my opinion, at least, going through college with no debt means you're already investing. You might not have a physical dollar in a retirement account, but you're investing in yourself. You're already ahead of the game just by doing that. So
Warren Buffett says that's the best investment you can make.
See, Warren Buffett likes what you're doing.
Well, that's good. I hope he's
He
right.
probably called Bob earlier today and said, I like that intern you got.
Yeah. I wish he did.
So, Bob, I'm going to put you on the spot. As we kind of wrap this episode up, what would you say are kind of the main takeaways for somebody who's watching, or for Carter that's just getting started in their life, they're in their 20s, just to kind of, you can never 100% ensure, but to really give somebody a good shot at having a great life and a great retirement?
It's, stay away from debt and start saving yesterday. Yeah. No matter how small the amount. And there's where don't really think these things like Robin Hood. I think they're a great way for a young person to segue into the market, because they can put $10 a week in it, $10 a month, but get used to putting some money away, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you're looking for that thing that's going to blow up, and that's probably not going to happen, but you learn from that, and you also learn that, hey, maybe there are other ways for me to invest a little bit smarter.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark, same question. What are any other ones than Bob might have said?
avoid buying that new vehicle. No, that's a joke. Kind of. I'd say, if I were to give advice to, when I go into high school, senior, when I go to those classes, we talk about tracking your money like we already talked about, but getting that Roth IRA open for as soon as you start working, and even if that's just putting a little bit of money away, but just have that understanding of like, hey, this is what this account is for. This is what I can do with it, and understanding that. And then the other thing I'd say is be willing to have some like uncomfortable conversations about money. Ask your parents about their budget. Ask your parent, or ask someone you trust. Come in and talk to someone like, Bob's a great example in our community. Someone that's obviously knows what they're doing with money. But be willing to, be vulnerable and ask questions about money. Some people I think are very guarded about that, or, which, it is your personal thing, but, be willing to maybe sound dumb. It's not dumb, but be willing to sound
There's no
dumb.
such thing as a dumb question.
Be willing to sound dumb, but be vulnerable and ask questions.
Very good. All right. Well, as we bring this episode to a close, I want to thank everybody for watching. Carter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Carter is just telling me before we went on the air that he's getting ready to move today, move his stuff into his new place. School starts later this month, so back to the junior year at K-State.
Thank you, Carter.
Yes,
Yep. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, if you're watching us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, give us a thumbs up and a like. And of course, if you think that Mark or Bob or maybe Carter in the future could be of help to you, they would love for you to reach out and get all their contact information on the website. Have a great day.
Thank you.
See ya.